Comparing yourself to yourself. All right, yesterday I promised you I'd make a video about comparing yourself to yourself, and I've grappled with this a lot. In fact, I recorded a video and I deleted the video because I realized it's all wrong. I had a little bit more of an insight on this topic, and I want to share that with you today. If you didn't watch the other video I'm talking about, you can watch yesterday's video where I talk about how I regained my motivation for running and how I can keep my motivation for everything, the little hack that I learned about that. I'd suggest you check that out. But today we're talking about comparison. And here's the thing, for a long time, I subscribed to the idea that you shouldn't compare yourself to others, but you should compare yourself to yourself. And I am now, in fact, just literally 5 minutes ago, I completely changed my viewpoint on that as I tried to make the argument for it and realized that all the arguments for it failed. Let me explain. So the idea goes like this: don't compare yourself to others. Instead, compare yourself to yourself, or compare yourself to who you were yesterday, who you were last month, who you were last year. And I think it's a valid argument as long as you're making progress. But the place where that argument falls apart is when you have a downturn, or you stop making progress, or you regress. And that's the situation I found myself in recently. If you saw my video on why I'm not doing so well, the honest truth of that, if you haven't, it's a long video, but I share kind of all the details of my life and depression and what's been going on for the last few years. But the thing is, what got me into that state was comparing myself to myself. Because here I was, Mr. Jacked, Bulldog Mindset, going, picking up girls, like just getting after it every single day, being super productive and all these things, okay? And then what happened was I got into a state where I wasn't doing that anymore. I was falling off the wagon, right? I wasn't as ripped as I wasn't as productive, I wasn't in the same mental state and all of these things, and I felt bad about myself, right? And I've fallen into this before, but I never really made the connection between, the comparison, because I've always thought it is good to compare yourself to yourself, right? And so, like I said, what can happen is when you're doing this, as long as you're making progress, you feel good. You're like, oh, look who I was yesterday. But if you really think about this, the big problem with it is that you're not really living in the present moment, are you? Right? You're kind of living in the past or the future. Like when you're comparing yourself to yourself and you're seeing the progress even, what you're saying is like, I'm dwelling on this past, and now I'm comparing it to who I am now, and now I'm projecting into the future of who I want to be. And so you're not actually content at where you are and enjoying this present moment. It's always you're trying to get back to the past of where you were, who you were, right? The accomplishments you had, or you're trying to advance to the future of where you want to be. And that is not a healthy or happy place to live, and you will never enjoy your life doing that. So there is no way that you can really make the argument that you should compare yourself to yourself, right? Obviously, we know it's not good to compare yourself to others, but I'm gonna make the argument today that you shouldn't compare yourself to yourself either, and here's why. Or that's why, actually. I don't need to tell you why, because I just told you why, right? So what should you do instead? Well, how can you have advancement? Remember yesterday, I talked about the idea that making progress is the thing that gives you happiness and motivation and joy, and so you've got to be making progress. And the idea that you could reset your motivation by resetting your progress. I have this concept of the well, or the dam, the high water mark, right? Is that when you see a dam and you have this high water mark, you can see where it was, and you have to reset that high water mark to where the levels are now so that you can feel progress again. And so the whole idea of that video yesterday was about resetting that high water mark, going and saying, for my runs, hey, I'm not going to compare myself to when I was running 50-mile ultra marathons. I'm just going to look at where I am now and make progress on that. And as long as I'm pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, I can trust the process, and I'll make progress, and I'll feel good about that. And that's how I was able to enjoy the run. Well, here's the deal. That is the answer. Okay, it's as simple as that, right? The answer is this: instead of comparing yourself to yourself, you should not do that. You should not compare yourself to others. Instead, just trust the process. Just trust that if you continually push yourself outside of your comfort zone, you can't help but grow. You have to grow. You have to advance, all right? It will happen. Now, can you lose some of that advancement? Sure, over time. But you get more enjoyment from the advancement than you do from the attainment, from reaching a level. So as long as you're trusting the process, then you know you can feel that you're making progress, right? You don't need to see the physical evidence of it. Sure, it's great to get the confirmation and see the physical evidence, especially if you transform your body. It's great, but the downfall of that, right? The unintended consequence or side effect of that is that if you get your joy from comparing yourself to who you were yesterday, and you're like, okay, I lost a bunch of weight. Look at how jacked I am now. Look at how much money I have now. Look at how many girls I have now. If you lose that, then you will lose the joy. So it's dangerous. So it's a tether. It's an attachment. Attachments are the things that cause us pain in life. It's an attachment to something that we don't need to have an attachment from or to. So instead of doing that, compare yourself to nothing. Instead, live in the present moment and just focus on pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. If you're continually pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, you're going to see advancement. It is going to happen, right? That's part of trusting the process, because you know that thing is going to have to happen. And not only do you know it, but you can feel it, right? You can feel when you're making progress. And so what happens when you're not? So what happens when you fall off, when you go down? Because this is going to happen, right? Ultimately, you cannot keep on advancing forever. You cannot keep making progress forever. Either you're going to hit the top, okay, and it's going to be harder and harder to make more advancement, or you're going to fall off. You're going to mess up. You're going to get tired. You're going to get lazy. Something's going to happen, right? Life happens to you. What do you do when you do fall off? Simple. You reset. You reset it back down, just like I was saying yesterday. And you just focus on moving yourself outside the comfort zone. As long as you can live outside of the comfort zone and get used to living outside of the comfort zone, two things will happen, okay? One, you will never be disappointed. You will never feel that lack, that comparison that makes you feel like you lost something, because you're not trying to get to a place where you don't have to go outside your comfort zone anymore, where you can just rest. See, the problem is something interrupts your rest. You're like, ah, shit, now I gotta get out of my comfort zone again. And the second thing that will happen is that your overall comfort zone will expand. We call this self-confidence, okay? Universal self-confidence, true self-confidence. Your overall comfort zone will expand, because the more that you just continually put yourself in uncomfortable situations, the more that your capacity for that increases. Just like I can record these videos just walking down the street because I'm willing myself to do it. It's not comfortable when I walk by someone and they hear me talking to myself and pointing a camera at myself, looking at my own abs in the camera or whatever, you know, that's what they think I'm doing. I don't care, it doesn't matter, but it is uncomfortable. But I'm making myself do that, and then it becomes easier over time. And other things in life become easier because it's easier to just put yourself outside of your comfort zone because you're used to it, and then you make all this amazing progress and growth. And not only do you make the amazing progress and growth, but you enjoy the moment while you're doing it. Because what good is it to be on top of the world? What good is it to gain all the money and the abs and the women if a majority of the time you spent getting there, you didn't enjoy? And then when you get there, you don't enjoy that either, because you think that that's going to make you happy, and you still haven't learned to live in the present moment. See you tomorrow.